Hello, folks. Welcome to the Manly Pinterest Tip Show. I'm Jeff C., and you're not. I'm so excited for you guys to be here today. We've got another great guest to talk with today. But always, I'd love for you to go over to manlypinteresttips.com and subscribe to our email community. That way, you'll never miss one of these great guests that we have on the show. You can also now text Manly Pinterest Tips to 33444 on your mobile device. That's Manly Pinterest Tips at 33444. Now, my next guest, I met Natalie earlier this year at Podcast San Diego, and I knew that I had to have her on my show. And I was honored to be interviewed by her on her BizChix podcast last month. And I knew she'd really connect with my audience as well. And she's really developed a great online community, has some great tips and tricks that she's going to share with us today. Now, Natalie has 3 kids, 2 businesses, and 1 husband. Together with her husband, Mark, she founded ScheduleMax.com, an online scheduling software in 2011. And 18 months ago, she launched the BizChix.com. That's BizChix.com, a community and podcast for female entrepreneurs. Natalie holds an MBA and is a former management consultant. She loves coaching new podcasters and small business owners, as well as hosting masterminds for her community. Natalie, thanks so much for being with us here today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Jeff. I'm a little nervous because it's my first live interview and my first video interview.
Oh, you're going to be great. It's really easy. It's just, no problem. We'll just have a conversation. It'll be awesome. So, guys, as I'm talking with Natalie today, she really does have a great community. So if you have any questions for her, make sure you ask them in the comment stream, and we'll try to pull them up today during the show and get to them and answer your questions for you. So, Natalie, let's just start right off. Kind of tell us about your background and how you ended up online and eventually started doing a podcast.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. Well, I'm so excited to be here. And so thank you so much for having me, first of all. And my community's really responded to your episode. They really loved learning about you, learning about Pinterest and manly Pinterest tips from a dude.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah, lots of
fun. It was great. But for me, my background, I was a management consultant, and before I had my daughter who's 13, and I used to travel all around, mainly around the United States, but sometimes around the world for work. And I knew when I had her that I wanted to do something different, and I didn't want to be traveling, and I wanted to be home more. And I did stay home with her for a few years and took little freelance projects on here and there. And that's kind of how I started, kind of my entrepreneurial journey was shifting from working for someone to being an entrepreneur. And then my daughter's dad and we divorced when she was in kindergarten, and I kind of re-entered the workforce part-time, again, still as an entrepreneur doing freelance work. And then I married my husband, Mark, who you know well, yes. In 2009. And a year later, we decided to launch a business together, and we launched ScheduleMax.com. And we got to learn all about the online world, which was so different from the work both of us had previously been doing. And I started to look around for resources to help me understand how to be a better entrepreneur, how to understand social media. And I fell in love with podcasts. And I fell in love with them so much that I wanted to have my own. I really wanted to bring a voice to women and women entrepreneurs. I was hearing a lot of really awesome men doing podcasts and interviewing other men, and their lives are so different from mine. I'm a mom. I'm trying to juggle all these things, and sometimes they would have women on and they wouldn't ask them the questions. I was like, oh, ask them this question, or how is she doing that? And so that's why I decided to launch BizChix, and it's developed into a community of women, and my guests, they're all connecting together in an online Facebook, private Facebook group. And it's just been a load of fun and really created a platform for me. I didn't have a platform on my own before I launched the show. And so that's really created that for me, the podcast has.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, I wanted to bring up some comments real quick. My friend Mike Alton goes, hey, wow, welcome to the HOA land, Natalie. So Mike's saying hi. And also my friend Elisa says, Jeff C., I listened to Natalie's BizChix episode with you, and I was great. Looking forward to this conversation. So, I tell people a lot that was one of the funnest interviews I've ever done with somebody. It was just a lot of fun. And that's why I wanted my wife to listen to it, because it was just a fun show. I mean, you kind of surprised me with some questions about like my background that luckily that I was able to talk about. So it was just a fun show. So is there a reason you kind of went to podcasting? Was there was it because you were listening to them and you just wanted to have your own, or did you see like okay, there's a big void, and that's the main reason? Which kind of was it?
I think it was one, I wanted to have something for myself. Mark and I are in business together, and I wanted to have something that I was doing on my own. And I saw that there was potential for business, but usually I'm a huge planner. If anyone listens to my show, they know like I plan everything out. But for the podcast, I just kind of let it evolve. I wasn't sure quite where it was going. I knew that other people were making money through their podcast, but I wasn't sure. I didn't have an exact plan. I just knew that it was something I wanted to do. And everything Mark and I do is about helping other entrepreneurs. So our business Schedule Max is an online scheduling software that helps other entrepreneurs make their business more efficient. And really, BizChix is all about helping female entrepreneurs grow their business. And initially, to answer your question, I wasn't quite sure where it was going. I knew there was a bunch of different ways it could go. And so I just wanted to see how it would unfold. And I really wanted to create the content I wanted to hear. And that's what I feel like I've done. And I wasn't sure how it would go, if I would be good at it, or if people would listen. And it's kind of scary to put, as you know, to put yourself out there. If I build it, will anybody come? You don't know. Like, is anyone besides my mom going to listen? And so it's been really exciting to see it develop and kind of grow as it has over the last year and a half.
Yeah, my mom doesn't even listen to mine, so you got me there. I mean, that's really interesting. And just as a kind of personal question is, did you launch when you launched? Did you launch with doing one show a week, or kind of what was your schedule, and has that evolved any?
Yes, that's such a good question, because it has completely evolved. I don't know what I was thinking, but so I was a huge fan of John Lee Dumas, who has a daily show, and he's done it for at least 2 years that I'm aware of. I think even almost 3 now. I think this fall it'll be 3 for him. And I thought, well, John's a single guy, so if he does 7 days a week, at the time I had 2 kids, I'm like, I could do 5 days a week. I'll just take off, 2 days.
Right.
And it really seemed like a great way to really be in people's ears as often as possible. Like, if they wanted to hear content, I was going to have content for them to hear. But what I found was, one, it was a schedule that was really difficult to keep up with running another business and being a mom. And then right as we were deciding to launch the podcast, we found out we were pregnant with baby Jet, our 3rd child. Right. And so literally the first 9 months of my podcast were the 9 months of my pregnancy. And so, as you know, I'm sure as you probably go back in time and remember, the beginning of a pregnancy is a time when a woman's body is like really tired. And so we kind of cut out, there's no TV in our life and almost no fun in our life for the few months we were doing 5 episodes a week, because also what I found out is I couldn't edit it myself. I couldn't produce all this content and edit it and do all the rest of the things involved in putting a podcast out there. So Mark, my husband, who's really techie and is a software developer, he said, let me do the editing, and then you can just focus on the show. And so that was a huge blessing, huge help. And then I decided to move to 3 days a week. And then over time, I moved to 2 days a week. And literally just a few months ago, I've gone to 1 day a week, which is a schedule I'm going to continue. And it's just one that I can really keep up with. And I love it because I can really just focus on that one episode, like promoting it. There's a lot we have to do as podcasters to get the word out there. And so it's really just now it's a lot more fun. To do 1 day a week. But having started at 5 days a week, now doing 1 day a week is like, oh, it's just 1 day a week. That's so easy.
It's like nothing. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, that's interesting because, a lot of people, when they pivot like that, they either feel like a sense of failure but it sounds like you went like, this is what's right. I'm not scared to change, and I can do a better job if I scale back.
Well, there's a little more to it. I was about to quit each time, literally, honestly. So and I actually did a audio blog and a podcast episode on that, how I almost quit podcasting 3 times because it's so time consuming, and it's really a long-term play. It takes a long time to develop a listenership, develop an audience. There's so many choices out there and that people have to listen to. And so the reason I continue podcasting is for the women in my private Facebook group. Those are the women that I podcast for, because I get to hear all the time how it's benefiting them. I get to see how this community has been created because of the podcast. Like, those ladies wouldn't be together without that. And I see them working together and helping each other and even starting to like partner together on businesses. So that those scaling down, so it was a lower time commitment for me, and seeing people in my group has changed things for me.
Yeah. And it's always interesting when you're on the new and noteworthy. If you guys don't know, that's when you first start a podcast, you get on this like kind of group and you get all this traffic and all this people watching your show. And then when you're off, it crashes to nothing. Oh, well, not nothing. It just, you're hopefully keep some of the momentum going, but it is one of those things where you're like, oh my gosh, now the real work begins of pushing your show out and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
The other question since we're talking about online community today, and a lot of people, it's always banded about, you have to get community, create an online community. How would you define an online community?
I think it can be in so many different ways, right? There can be paid communities, there can be free communities, there can be forums, there can be Google communities. For me, I found that most of my listeners were on Facebook. And so creating a private Facebook group was what I decided to do to create my community. And I actually use my community as a lead magnet for my show. So people, when they sign up to be part of my my newsletter and to get information from me, they also get a link to the private Facebook group. And so that also kind of limits to my listeners. Those are my listeners in there. It's not just women who are interested in being part of the group.
Right.
So there's so many ways you can do it. You can there's even private Facebook groups where you pay to be part of the community, and then you get access to the group. But for me, it's a free community, but you do have to go through it like one more step before just Facebook, because Facebook will suggest groups for you.
Right.
And unless you have a secret group, anyone can see your group. So people can find my group, and but unless they're part of my my email list, basically they don't gain access. So and if they're a man, they can't be in there either. So sorry, Jeff.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So so you kind of have it kind of gated. So it's not a completely open Facebook group. You have kind of like an application process that you send them through. Is that how it works?
It's not really an application process, because it's basically any woman that signs up for my email list gets invited to the group automatically. And as long as they follow the rules, the community rules I've created, they are welcome to stay. So I really haven't had to remove anybody from the group. I have not accepted a few people in the group if they are members of hundreds of Facebook groups. I believe you can be a member of 6,000 Facebook groups.
Wow.
And I've had like women want to join my group that have like 600, they're members of like 600 groups. And so that just tells me they're out there selling something, and that's their focus. And so I don't admit them to the group. And people will post things like promotional things in my group, which we have a day where we have Tuesdays, we call it Promote Your Biz Tuesday, where you're welcome to promote your business within the confines of, a single post.
Right.
But people that do it outside of that, I kind of let them know. I delete those posts, and I let them know that why I did that and where the right way to do that in the group per the group rules. And that just keeps it a safe community, because no one wants to be in a group where you're constantly being sold to. That's not fun.
Right. Well, that's a great idea. And I never really thought about using your email list to gain access to the group. That's genius. I may steal that.
Yeah, please do. I stole it from
I will allow women in my
group.
Group.
Yes, I will. And then I can be in your group.
That's
so
right.
One cool thing was, Jeff, like for your episode, so usually I invite my guests to be in my group, and almost every one of them is in my joins into the group. I couldn't invite you because you're a cool dude, and I literally only interview like 10% of my guests or less are men. Right. And I hadn't interviewed another. You were like the first man in a year. That's how awesome you are. I was like, here's the guy I've been waiting for.
Well, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
But I was able to ask my community I'm like, Jeff can't be in here, so can we give him some extra social love today? And they responded. And I think you saw like extra tweeting and some social love for you that I was able to ask my ladies to do for you.
And see, that's what's so cool about a community, is that you can ask them, and because you have given them so much, it's not like you're being spammy. They want to help you because you've given them content and you've given them help, like for you and their business when they're starting out and stuff. And so I think that's a really good point to make, is that you don't create a community yes, we all want to make money, but you're not creating a community to sell to. You're creating a community to build community, and then you can, you build up trust that you can sell them, or you can tell them, ask them to do something the time is right.
Exactly.
Very cool. What are some tips, and you have done it. You built your community from scratch. Did you have like a number of followers that you thought I had to have before I started building this community, or how do you do it from zero?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I would have started it sooner. So I launched my podcast the very last day of January in 2014, and I launched the Facebook group in November of that same year. So it took me 11 months to launch it. I wish I had launched it after a few months. And if I had a platform already, for anyone that has if they're a blogger and they had a following, or if you have a following in any other way, I would launch it immediately if it's something that you want to have. I guess the first thing I should say is that managing a group takes time. And so you need to make sure you have that time to put into it, because if you're not going to be in there I don't want to say the word policing, but protecting the members that are in there for legitimate reasons, then you have to create a culture. Any group has its own culture, and so I have created the culture in my group, and so that takes some time. So my tips are to start sooner than you feel ready. And again, it's like starting a podcast. Who is anyone going to come? And I literally was like sick to my stomach. Like, what if I create this group and no one joins it? How will I feel about myself? And I just had to get over myself and be like, well, if no one's in it, then I'll close it down. And that tells me something. But I got a really quick response. I asked a few friends. I was like, hey, I created this group. Will some of you guys come hang out in here? So that's what I would do too. Like, ask some of your online buddies that you can ask those kinds of things to. And there's fellow podcasters in there. Actually, what I've learned from this is I have a lot of female podcasters that listen to my show. And so there's other female podcasters in my group too, which has been kind of fun. So I've really gotten to see the demographics of my group as well. But I think deciding what the guidelines are for your group, deciding what culture you want to have, and being willing to enforce it. I've been in groups where they say no selling, but you see people selling. And so you have to be willing to, make some people mad and delete their posts, and that you're doing that to protect the rest of the group.
Now, how much time do you spend on like managing your group? Do you go in there? Are you dipping in there once a day? Is it like taking all these hours out of your week that you're putting in there as it grows? How much time are you spending?
I don't want to know. I'm in there multiple times a day. On the weekends, sometimes I may or may not be in, but I usually create a conversation starter every day. Okay. And at first I was making them the same, like every Monday I would suggest this to start conversation. And then we all got bored with that. So now I try to find really fun things. And my most popular post, which I'll share with everybody, if you have a group, I highly recommend you do this because it really builds community, is where are you? Where in the world are you? And I'll post like a graphic of the world, and people love saying where they're from. And it's a fast way to respond. And then people start finding friends. They're like, oh my gosh, I live the next town over. Or I didn't know you were in Australia too, and in this group, and cool, like we're both Aussies. And so those get the most response of any other post I do. And so that's kind of one of my best tips. But I am in there, I would say at least 3 times a day. And especially if someone tags me, I want to see, if they need me to answer a question. But another thing that I've done, which I think has been helpful for the community, is when someone asks a question, even if I have an immediate answer, sometimes I'll hold back and let the community respond, like let the community help each other. Right. And at first I felt like, oh, I need to respond to every person's question and give my input. And I decided, after observing that I really want I'm creating this for people, a community. It's not just like Natalie's group. It's the BizChix community group. And so I want people to feel that they play a big role and they can help each other and they can ask questions. And so sometimes on days when like my life's really hectic and I don't start a question, someone else will start a conversation in the group. And I'm like, yes, like the first time that happened, I'm like, at first I was like, hey, and then I thought, this is what I want. Like, this is what's happening. Like people are starting conversation. I don't have to be present for the community to be happening.
Do you have like moderators or super users that you've appointed kind of maybe even unofficially to help manage that? Or are you waiting so that's kind of your next step when it grows?
That literally is my next step. And any ladies that are listening now that are interested, that are in the group that are interested in helping to moderate the community, I am completely open to that. And it's funny you asked that, because it's literally something I'm planning to do this summer, because I would like to be able to take some time off and offline and have the group still be going and going strongly and within the community guidelines.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, you mentioned, that those people you saw that were trying to join who had like 600 groups they're already following and stuff like that. So how do you handle difficult members? Because, there's always that one guy or girl that that's driving everybody nuts, and they may not even know it, but they are. So how do you handle those difficult people that show up in your group?
Yeah, thankfully the people that I am attracting do not tend to be like that. So I don't know. We haven't gotten to that level yet. So I think the group is kind of policing itself. And there hasn't been, and it may also be kind of women instead of, no offense to men, not that there aren't difficult women, because there are difficult women and there are mean girls out there, but the way the community has developed and the culture of the community has been very more of helping. And, occasionally I will post something that, like, it's a question. It's not about promoting your business, but like, hey, what are you working on this week? And someone will respond, and it's very promotional. Like, I am working on launching my next, whatever. And I'm so excited for it to be done and launched on Friday, July 29th, or whatever it is.
And here's the link to buy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happens is, in a way, because Facebook allows you to tell people if you like things or not, that person gets 0 likes, and you'll see everything else is being liked. So in some ways it's self-policing. And if someone was to do that week after week, they would get a personal message from me, and then over time they get booted from the group. But thankfully, it's, I think people are wanting, even people that do that want to get feedback back. And I think they're kind of seeing they're not getting that. So I guess that's a benefit from Facebook, is they're kind of helping me police when I don't even really realize it.
Gotcha. So, you mentioned you had the opt-in for your podcast to join the group. And it sounds like it's really increased your audience. So how do people find out about the BizChix community? Is it they see the group on Facebook, then they go to the podcast, or is it the podcast, then they want to join the group on Facebook? How does that kind of work?
Good question. Well, one of the things we know as podcasters is it's really difficult to get people to take any action from a podcast, because we are all doing something else while we're listening to a podcast. And even people that are watching us right now, they might have like 3 other screens open. And so it's really hard, especially with the audio podcast, to get people to do anything. And one of the things I learned from one of my guests, who was a brain researcher, and she talked about what motivates all of us to do anything, is that one of the 7 main things that motivate us as humans to take any action or do anything or make any changes is the desire to be part of a community and to be connected with others. And so using the word join anywhere on your site, instead of you could say I actually asked her for Schedule Max, we say start a free trial. And she said, well, that doesn't really tap into any of those motivators. It could be join the scheduling revolution, something like that. And so when I decided to create the Facebook community, I use the word, I have a button that says join the Facebook, the BizChix community. And that's a button on my site. And I mention it not in every episode, but in almost every episode. At the end or at the beginning, I will say, here's what's going on in the group. Sometimes I'll read a post that's going on, and I'll say, it's a really safe place to join. And sometimes I'll have people that sometimes I'll have people that will email me even or private message me and say, well, I'm not very long. I'm not an entrepreneur yet. Can I be in the group? So then I learned I have to say it's for any woman interested in entrepreneurship or becoming an entrepreneur. We have women in every stage, and we'd love for you to be part of this amazing community. And so I talk about what it's like to be in there, and that seems to be working.
Yeah, that's awesome. And in fact, my friend Elisa told me that, not to say sign up or anything like that on the website. So that's why even on my podcast, I say, come be a part of our email community so you'll never miss a guest. And so
it's really important. It's amazing how just those one little words, those, just tweaking things a tiny bit can make such a huge difference.
Gotcha. Now, do you, you have a huge following also on Pinterest. It's, I went over and looked at your account, and there's a lot of people there. So do you cross promote a lot of your community on other social networks like Pinterest. Do you, I know you use Facebook for your groups, but do you also, tweet out, come join my group, or maybe post a pin about your podcast on our Pinterest board? Or how do you kind of cross promote across?
Yeah, we publicize every episode on Pinterest. We also every guest that is on our show gives us a book recommendation, which we don't share on the show anymore because my listeners told me they were bored with that. So I stopped that. But I like getting the recommendations. And so they're all on a Pinterest board that people can learn about. And so I'll mention that on the show. I haven't used Pinterest to promote my community because for now I'm not really interested in my private Facebook group being huge. I'm interested in it having my listeners they're really, those people that really dig what I'm doing. And so I like keeping it smaller. I have other female podcaster friends that have huge groups, and they, anyone that finds it can join it, and that works for them. But for me, I kind of like it being like it's a small town right now, and I like it being a small town. And so I'm not promoting it on Facebook. If my strategy changes, I'm on Pinterest. So I don't promote the group there, but I definitely promote the podcast and my guests, and try to connect with my guests on Pinterest and listeners on Pinterest as well.
Gotcha. Now, there's some debate because I've been kind of researching some of this community stuff. Some people say don't build it on somebody else's platform like Facebook. You want to build it on your own website. I've always thought Facebook groups are so easy, and then plus everybody is there already. It makes sense to me to do that. But did you ever struggle with that? Why did you go with Facebook's other than, building it? I know Mark could make one on your own site.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. I try to always look at my own behavior. Even when I've been part of paid courses, if they had a forum or something on their site, I'm less likely to go there if I have to go there and log in and find people in forums. Even the latest technology still is kind of clunky in my opinion. It doesn't match what Facebook is doing and how easy it is to interact with people. Right. And I actually do have everybody's contact information because of the way I'm running it. To be part of my group, you have to kind of go through my website first.
Gotcha.
So occasionally I'll let people into the group if I see they have a lot of connections in the group. So sometimes I'll see someone try to join the group, but they know like 4 or 7 people in the group. And I'm like, well, I'm going to, let them in. I'm not going to send them a note that says you have to go through my list. Right. So, not 100% of people in my group, I have their email, but a majority of them I do. So that's how I've kind of gotten around that idea, that strategy.
Gotcha. Now I know you're in some masterminds, and I'm actually, for those who are watching, I'm actually in a mastermind with your husband, Mark, which is great because I've never really done a mastermind. I mean, I did a BNI group and some networking groups before, but I'd never been in a mastermind or masterminds because I'm in another one as well until this year. So I know you're in a lot of masterminds too. Can you explain to people who maybe have not heard of what a mastermind is, what they are if they're unfamiliar with the term?
Yeah, a mastermind is a group of, and is any size group. It can be 2 people. You and I could have a mastermind right now, right, Jeff? We could be in a mastermind. And what you agree to is some parameters for meeting together. And so I'm currently in a group similar to the one you're in with my husband, Mark. It's 4 women, and we meet weekly. We meet via a Google Hangout like this, but it's private. Mm-hmm. And we also have a private Facebook group just for that mastermind. I think you guys use Slack as another technology for your communication, but we're doing everything on Facebook. And so a mastermind is a way to be with like-minded people that can help you move forward in your goals, and you're supporting each other and driving each other forward. And so, I also have had a paid mastermind for my group, and I'm launching actually a new one next week, which is all about social media. It's just for 6 weeks, and it's for people that want to really understand social media. And it's going to be a small group of women, and we're going to mastermind together each week about a different platform. And it's a short-term one. It's only going to last 6 weeks. So also a nice thing about a mastermind is to have a start date and an end date in mind. because some groups are better to be together for a short time, and other groups may last years and years.
Right.
And so you have some rules around how you meet. What we're doing in my group with just 4 of us is once a month we're in the hot seat, and we have to present a business problem that we're having to the group, and then we get feedback from the group, and it's been amazing. One of the things that I recommend for masterminds is to find diversity, because when you study teams, what you find is the more diverse the team is, the more amazing the ideas that come out of it. So in my group, we have a historian. She actually has a PhD in history.
Oh, wow.
We have a neurologist who's no longer a neurologist, but she now is focusing on business and speaking and using her medical degree in that way. And then we have a former teacher who's now a children's book author, and she does speaking engagements, speaking to kids. And so we're really coming, and then I have, my business background, and one other person in the group is a podcaster, but the other 2 aren't. So in common, we're all trying to move our online businesses forward, and all of us have an interest in speaking. And it's really fascinating, some of the ideas that are coming out of that group, and I'm really enjoying the diversity of it. So that's one of my suggestions if you're forming a group of your own.
Yeah, and just to add on to that is the mastermind. I'm in a podcasting mastermind with your husband and a bunch of other people, 3 more. And it's been great because, like, I'm speaking at Podcast Movement, and when it was my turn on the hot seat, I was like, okay, this is my topic. What do you want to know for a podcaster? This is what I'm thinking. Is it good? And they're like, okay, that's really great. I wouldn't talk about this. Why don't you give some tools? I mean, so it was just it really helps you get some great advice from people who are, who are ahead of you. And also you can help people who are maybe not, are just starting out. So it's just, it's an awesome thing. So, but you have to pick the right mastermind. You don't want to go into just any old one. You want to really think about it, make sure that you're compatible with everybody and that your goals are the same. And so, but it's been really awesome. And Mark's been awesome in that as well. So you mentioned paid masterminds. And do those just usually last for a short amount of time, or are there paid masterminds that go on forever? Because I've never been I guess like Podcasters Paradise is actually, you could almost classify that as a paid mastermind with a bunch of people.
Okay.
But
thousands of your closest friends.
But do those usually last for a short term? I mean, and because what I'm wanting to know is, I know a lot of small businesses are thinking about this and think it's a good idea. But when is it time to monetize, and how long should it last?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I tried out this concept at the beginning of the year of a paid mastermind, and made it for 12 weeks, and that we would continue. If we wanted to keep continuing, we would continue. And so 2 things I learned during that process is, one, I needed to be in a mastermind for myself, if that makes sense. So like getting fed and having a place to have people talk to me. So in the group where people were paying to be part of a mastermind with me, I didn't want to go to them. I didn't want to take up airtime with my problems and my issues. I wanted it to be all about them. They were paying to be in it. And so if you are to create a paid mastermind for your business or your community, I highly recommend that you're in another mastermind that either you're not leading or separate from that group. So you kind of need both, is what I feel like.
Right.
And but in that group, another thing I learned was, which you kind of touched on a second ago, is it's great to have people at different levels, but you don't want them to be too far apart. So we had some people in that group that had very mature businesses, and 1 or 2 other people that were like thinking of starting businesses. So they were too far apart. And some teaching I've heard on this recently is to not have people in the group that are more than plus or minus 2 levels in your business, however you want to define that. So so that, I think, is a really helpful parameter. And really, the great thing is what I say about podcasting. There's no rules in podcasting. There's no rules in masterminds. You could do whatever you want. Try it out. And what works for one niche and one community may not work for another. So I did the 12-week mastermind first. And then I've taken a little break from that. I've been doing a lot of private coaching for, mainly podcast coaching lately, which has been super fun.
Right.
And then I'm starting this short social media mastermind to go along with the summer. I'm calling it social media summer camp, which is what you were part of.
Right.
And it's all my episodes are related to social media. And kind of, I find like in the summer, we're recording this in the summer. It's easy to kind of sit back and let your business just kind of coast. And I thought, well, this is a great time to focus on each of the social media platforms for all of us, all my BizChix listeners. And then in the fall, I'm going to launch another mastermind that I'm going to take. It'll be more of like a 3 or 4 month mastermind to take us through the next year. So I haven't tried like a year-long one, but that would be like the next level I would try.
Do you limit the amount of people you have in those paid masterminds, or you just like open it up and whoever decides to join joins?
Yeah, I think you got to think about it. Are you doing a mastermind or are you doing group coaching? Because I think if you do group coaching, it can be a little bigger. I partnered with 2 other female podcasters, Elsie Escobar and Jessica Kupferman, who have She Podcasts. And we did a group coaching for new podcasters and podcasters that had recently launched. And that was, that group was a 10-week group. And it was almost, we had 17 people in that, plus the 3 of us. So there were 20 total. And it didn't have the feel of a mastermind. It had the feel of a group coaching or of a class. Whereas for masterminding, I really want to get those people in the hot seat. And so for me, having more than 10 people would be too many. And even I think the sweet spot is probably somewhere between 6 and 8. To really make sure people are getting heard and getting their business talked about and spoken into.
Gotcha. Well, do you have any advice do you wish you would have started a paid mastermind earlier, or do you wish you would have waited longer and learned more? I mean, you mentioned making sure you're in one for yourself so you can kind of give everything to the people who are paying for it. Should you wait? I mean, or have so many followers before you start? What's kind of your advice on that?
I think depending on, what your business is and when do you have a following? Do you have people interacting with you, people starting to ask for your help and advice? Once you have that, you know that you're tapping into something. And that was happening to me. And I always say start sooner, start before you're ready. Whatever it is you're doing, if you think you should start, but you're like, oh, but I'm not ready, start today. Do it and go for it and just try it. And here's my mom's best life advice. You can always ask people something and they can always say no. So you can always launch something and no one shows up. You learn something that tells you something and you don't have to take it personal. It just tells you that you weren't quite where you thought you were. And there's some things you need to build before you get there.
Gotcha. Good stuff. Oh, and here's Dustin popped in and said, hey, yeah, I've tried to get several masterminds together and always seem to fizzle out. Really need to find the right people, I guess. And I think that's true. And if you're in a mastermind too, that I think that you think's not worth it, working for you, it's okay to leave. I mean, it really is. I mean, if you paid for one, you're out some money probably, but if you're not finding it's worth your time, then leave. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So
definitely. A great question, Dustin. And I think that happens all the time. And I think having some rules around your time of masterminding together and what happens if someone stops showing up, like when does someone get booted from the group? And I think it's like having boundaries with people and having boundaries with your mastermind. You only want people in there that are going to make it be there. That's as important as it is for you to be there. And so it is finding those right people and having some rules around it.
Gotcha. Now, here's a question I thought when I was looking through all of you. I mean, you've interviewed some great guests on your show. I mean, really, some really cool ones. So you've interviewed dozens of these female entrepreneurs during your BizChix podcast. Now, is there a common element you've seen throughout these interviews, like, maybe struggles that female entrepreneurs have or a trait they share that really seems to give them success? When you look through all those you've done, what do you see that sticks out to you?
What amazes me is how creative women are, and I think men are creative too, but I primarily focus on women, so that's how I'll answer from that perspective. I see women having businesses while they're doing so many other things, and they're doing them from their home. That's what surprised me, I think, most about all these interviews is how many people are running businesses from their home, and how much they're getting done, like at nap time and after the kids go to bed, and it's just incredible. So that has been like one of the things that surprised me and fascinated me. And so I think that women, especially women that have children at home, their time management skills and being able to be laser focused on their business when they need to be has one of the things that I've taken away from this.
Gotcha. Well, I was going to ask this question. I actually skipped over it, but well, I know you have young kids at home, and I think you have a daughter who is my daughter's age, kind of in junior high, getting ready to go to high school.
Yeah.
How do you balance work and family? What's your best advice for that?
Yeah, it's really hard. My best advice is to get as much help as you can and outsource what you can. We hear in business people talking about outsourcing, things, business tasks, but as a woman, you need to outsource some of your tasks at home. So I'm really thankful. I have a nanny 3 days a week because I have my daughter who's 13, and then I have two sons, one who's 3.5 and a baby that's 10 months. So the reason we're having this conversation in the middle of the day right now is because my nanny has my kids at the park. My little ones, and my older daughter, she's actually at a musical theater camp for the next 6 weeks of her own choosing. She loves it. It's at the Performing Arts High School in our area, and so everybody has something they're doing, and so that's how I'm able to get work done. But my nanny does more than just helping with my kids when they're napping. She's doing household tasks for me. And in the past, before I had my little ones, I had a college helper who would help me, like, even go grocery shopping, run errands, and help drive my daughter to different things during the day. And so it's amazing. I just feel like the more that we can outsource from business and home as a woman, we have, a set amount of time, right? So whatever I can outsource of any task that I would have to do, whether it's work or home, that gives me more time for my family or more time for my business.
Gotcha. Well, my wife actually outsources all the cooking to me. And so she would really like to outsource the laundry, but we've got to write up a new contract. So what do you, I ask this question to everybody who's on the show, what advice for guys, because this is the Manly Pinterest Tip Show, would you give for guys who start using Pinterest?
I thought this was such a great question, Jeff, and I've heard you ask it other people. And I'm actually going to give the answer. It's an answer you gave me on my show. Okay. I don't even know if you like thought of it this way, but one interesting way you use Pinterest is to connect with your kids. I think you share a board with your daughter. And so was it projects she wants to do, or was it recipes you want to make together? I can't remember what.
It's a board called For Abby, and it's a private board. And so I'll pin crafts that I think she might want to do, and recipes she likes to cook, and she likes to decorate cakes and stuff. And then she'll pin stuff for me that she wants to do. And so it's kind of our own little secret thing. So yeah.
I thought that for men that aren't on Pinterest at all yet and are like, it's a place for the women. It's a place you can connect with the women in your life, because almost every woman I know, and even young girls, they're on Pinterest. And so if you want to be involved in what they're thinking about and dreaming about, and Pinterest is a place where you like plan your future and you think of things you might want to do. And so as a husband or boyfriend or dad or brother, if you can see what the women in your life are thinking about and dreaming about, that you can use that in your relationship. And I think having a board with like your wife, you could be like, let's dream about this next vacation that we could go on, or our anniversary next year, or like you're doing with your daughter. I think to use it as a source of connecting with the women in your life would be very powerful.
And you can also stalk what your wife is pinning and find out what's a good gift to get her.
Exactly. Exactly.
So Natalie, this is awesome. We could talk all day, I know, because you've built a great community, and I see what you're doing with your podcast, and it's really something I'm trying to emulate with mine. But where can we find out about you and your services? What's the best way to connect with you?
Wow, Jeff. Well, thank you so much. BizChix.com is the great place to find me, BizChix.com. And I'm actually going to create a page just for your audience, which I haven't done yet, but it'll be ready in a few hours.
Okay.
BizChix.com/Jeff. And I'll put some of my mastermind tips there. If you're interested, I have a PDF on how to pitch a podcaster. I know a lot of people listening might want to be on a podcast, and so I created a resource for that. I'll put that there so people can find it, and I'll put your episode so people can find out where Jeff grew up. And you may not know, but he is a pastor's son, so we find out a little bit about that when he's on my show.
That's right. Well, thanks so much. And I want to tell you guys before we get done, there is a special going on, and I've talked about this on my podcast a lot. It's a plugin that I use. It's called Social Warfare. It's awesome. It lets you tell people what pin to actually pin when they come to your site. It's just great. But they're having a sale. I got an email yesterday from my friend Dustin, and they're having a sale. It's 33% off during the 4th of July weekend. If you've ever been thinking about this plugin, you need to go get it now while it's on sale. It's for a whole year, 33% off. The link is there with the photo I've put on the event page. I'll also be tweeting it out and doing some other stuff later. So make sure you don't miss that awesome sale on the plugin. And as always, I'd love for you guys to go to manlypinteresttips.com, click on the sidebar, and subscribe. Not subscribe. We talked about that. We want you to be a part of our email community where you'll never miss a great guest like we had with Natalie today. Because at Manly Pinterest Tips, we're always adding testosterone one pin at a time. See you next time, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye now.